Are you ready to watch my engine come together? Because that's exactly what's happening on today's episode. So before we get started installing the intake manifold back on, we've got this whole amazing goodness here, and that's for the EFI conversion, right, Chris?
Yeah, this is the EFI conversion. So if you've got a flat intake manifold 911 turbo from 76 through 94, what we engineered was a setup to simply lift the manifold, take out the stock plastic injector blocks with the CIS thread-in injectors, take them out, drop in this new setup. It's the overall same height, phenolic insulator so you don't get heat soak from the cylinder heads.
Oh, nice.
They're interlocking. There's one other kit on the market, was kind of what we used to use a long time ago, but after having them warp and stuff, we just said, we gotta start over, redesign it. So yeah, you'll never blow out the gasket, you never blow out the insulator on it, never have it fail.
And they're a billet cut?
These are billet CNC machines.
Yeah.
Aluminum. We usually anodize them. And then the fuel rail is really securely mounted by having these little pieces that thread in, and then the rail mounts on top of that.
And the fuel rails are also your own design, fully.
Yep. Yeah, fuel rails are also machined from aluminum.
Wow.
They are all
gorgeous.
standard number 6. Thank you. They got ORB fittings on them, so really good O-ring seals. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 ports on each one, so whatever your fuel line configuration is, like if you've got no air conditioning, you want to come in on the ends, hey, no problem. You got AC, great, you come in from below. If you want to run a fuel pressure gauge, no problem. There's a port you can use.
Yeah, wicked.
And then one of the things we did is for low-speed drivability, we found that so many of the modern injectors have a wider spray cone. When you'd model the old fuel injector, sure, it worked for the CIS, but if you use those other kinds of injector blocks and you use a modern fuel injector with a wide spray cone, a lot of the spray cone was just hitting the port wall. So the injectors are spraying at the port wall, only part of the injector is actually nice and gas cloud, atomized, and going down the port smoothly, like you want it to. So that affects your low-speed drivability. We ended up just bringing the injector all the way around, straight behind the intake valve, perpendicular to the motor, just in line with the piston, and now it's spraying right at the back of the exhaust valve. So we looked at the widest spray cone injector you could buy, put it in there. It doesn't hit the port walls, so it's fine. If you use one of the old-fashioned 12 or 15 degree pencil cone,
yeah,
piece of cake. Still,
wicked.
That's the old injectors from the 80s. Almost all the new ones are a much wider gas cloud.
Yeah.
Let's see what else to tell you about them. No, that's it. Pretty much direct bolt-in, uses factory gaskets. The rails are held in place with little screws with some Loctite on them. And then another thing, of course, these have no coolant, so they're air cooled. You gotta have a head temp. So the factory really did it right. Instead of trying to pick up oil, because oil takes so long to warm up when you got over 12 quarts of it, they used head temp. So the only real permanent modification to the engine is this little slit in the number 3 sheet metal. The rest of this is bolt-in. This is kind of a permanent slit, so the head temp sensor ends up being installed behind that in the head fins, and then the temp sensor just threads directly into that.
Perfect.
Boom.
So that gives you quick and accurate,
very quick, yeah,
temperature.
Basically, this is a great conductor of heat. It's going to come right out, warm up the sensor. We've tested that compared to having it actually machined into the head like they did on the 3.2s and 3.6 Carreras.
Yep.
It's pretty much the exact same speed. There's no real temperature loss, so it's plenty effective. And then just to clean it up, we usually will take out the old intake manifold vacuum port that is huge and unnecessary.
Yeah.
So we plug it off with a nice little billet piece. Same with getting rid of the cold start valve. That just bolts on in place. Cleans up the manifold, and it's all very straightforward bolt-in.
Excellent. Well, we'll get to installing this and seeing how it all comes together.
Factory gasket, insulator, injector block. Boom.
Fits like a glove.
Yep. And interesting thing about all the factory ones is, they're trying to control air here, not have any extra air bleed out. So even the factory parts are stepped, and it kind of creates a little bit of a seal around here.
It's a great idea.
Boom.
You've thought of it all, Chris.
Helps seal around the shroud.
Most definitely.
Voila. Then you just reinstall the factory manifold. Boom.
And there we have it.
That's it. Bolts in just like original. And then we're going to epoxy in that little plug right there. get rid of the factory huge vacuum line that used to come around and
Yeah,
feed that
that
enormous recirculation valve system factory. And then this little bolt on the back just to get rid of the old cold start valve. Put a fresh O-ring, some fasteners on there. Done.
Good to go, yeah. Look at those spacers, fuel injector spacers. They look fantastic. I also painted the manifold. For those of you that don't know, it was silver, and now it's a pretty black looking color. Oh, and let's see how the fuel rails sit.
Yep. And
there we go.
Clear the factory brake booster vacuum port, so no problems there.
I'd call that a modern EFI setup. Hell yeah. I'm going to be using Injector Dynamics ID 1000 injectors, and the reason why I chose them is that they're excellent quality. They're made locally, actually, in Arizona here. And if you want to find out more about that, click the link in the top right corner. On top of that, the IDs are always known for their great idling characteristics considering the size of them. So that was one of my key things that I was looking for, is to ensure that I've got good idle quality and partial throttle drivability, and that's exactly what these injectors deliver. There we go, look at that. ID 1000s are in place. Damn, do they look good. Another must-have in our EFI conversion is a throttle position sensor, and the stock throttle body definitely does not have that. So Mike, what are you going to do here? You're going to...
Swapping out the throttle shaft.
Yep.
Knocking out this plug. It will have a boss there. Well, where's the adapter?
Somewhere.
We'll get this adapter to go on here, and the TPS bolts to that, and
oh, okay.
Follows.
That's wicked. And this is all TurboKraft proprietary equipment, I assume?
Yes.
Very cool. We're now ready for the actual TPS sensor, which will be coming in a bit. But the throttle body is also back on the engine. And a whole bunch of other minor parts have also been installed. Mike's been working away quickly here. We're on a tight deadline. It's already been 3 weeks, and we're working on trying to get this thing done this week so I can get back home and get to driving this car. You may be wondering why we have 2 turbos when we're going single turbo, and the reason is we're actually going to be doing a comparison test. We're going to be testing the Garrett GTX 30R versus Garrett's GTX 35R to see if there's a negligible difference in spool and whether the 30R can carry the power band up top. So far, anybody I've talked to has said the 30R is going to be too small, and the 35R is obviously the turbo to go for an engine of this displacement, but we're going to do the test and find out. So this guy again is going to give us accurate cylinder temperature or engine temperature readings right away, rather than waiting for an oil pressure, or sorry, oil temperature sensor that's located somewhere within the oil to come up to temperature. That was a lot of temperatures being used in one sentence. Temperature, 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 temperature. That's all you need to know and what we care about. I've decided to go ahead and upgrade the external wastegate from the old TileSport 46mm. This is actually a Porsche specific bolt-on unit, but it's big and bulky, and there's nothing really wrong with it other than what I said. It's big, bulky, and it's a little bit tired, and I wanted something a little bit more compact. So I introduced to you the TurboSmart Hypergate 45. So this thing's gonna flow the same exact amount as the tile, but in a much more compact package. It's actually got V-bands, so it makes installation much easier. And I've always trusted TurboSmart wastegates on all my cars, so why not keep the streak going with this one? We're going to be starting off with the GTX 3076R as the first turbo to install, because odds are we're going to end up using the 35R. So we don't want to put that on first, then put this one on, and then take it off again. So the choice is 3076R as the first turbo to get installed here. While I had to go out and run to pick up some vibrant fittings that we were missing for the fuel assembly, Mike was at it here and ended up putting on the heater hoses on both sides and is now working on putting on the engine harness. As you can see, it's coming together quickly. To finish off the fuel system, I've gone ahead and made some more lines with vibrant fittings. So this is the crossover fuel line that feeds the driver's side fuel rail over to the passenger side, and then over on the back side here we have the return line which feeds into the pressure regulator, the TurboSmart One FPR 1200, and I'm about to use my nifty AN wrenches so I don't scratch these fine fittings up. And actually the last thing left is going to be, this is going to be the return line onto the chassis, which we'll fab up once we get it, the engine into the car. And this has to be the feed line that, as you remember, will go to our AM fuel filter that's mounted off to the side. But that about does it for all the fuel system, so I'm happy to have that done. One of the items that I won't be using is this TurboSmart 100 PSI gauge. I thought we would need it, but apparently we're going to be putting a fuel pressure sensor from AM right here, so that negates this bad boy. Marty, I won't be sending you this back. I was hoping to use it, so I'll end up using it on another project. And that wraps it up for today. As you've seen, lots of progress has happened. We're working pretty quickly trying to meet my deadline, but there's still a little bit left, so make sure you tune in and watch us finish this project off.